him with the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Are there any amendments or adjustments to the agenda this evening? Okay, with that, we will approve the agenda, and I will move right into school board training. I'm going to hand it over to Kristen Miles.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for having me. We'll do introductions in just a moment, but I know there was a little bit of wondering. So before we start, I want to make sure that we are just correct. So want to make sure that we are handling our time accordingly. So what is your plan for tonight?
I'm here.
Don't be safe.
No, I would say, so we have a brand new school board member, and then do any of us have any additional areas we can dive in on?
I don't have anything specific at this time. I can mention that when I had this training early on, it was the best thing that ever happened to us. So I really want to make sure that George gets that same experience.
Okay. Because this is generally a couple of hours, right? Okay, does that work for you? Okay, great. There we go.
To answer your
Expectations.
question about topics to dive deeper on, briefly what I discussed the last meeting about how we can have some more knowledge of things that might be slipping through the cracks that we wouldn't understand or know operationally that might have surprised us, not out of lack of trust, but just our responsibility to kind of have finger on that pulse a little bit better. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I will say before we get started that this is your time, not mine. And so, of course, I bring information to share, but the most important thing is that we talk about the things that are important. So as we're going, it's not my intention to be like, let me get the high slide. That's not my thing, right? So if we run across something that you want to stop and talk about, or something that I'm saying reminds you of something else you want to talk about, let's do that. That's the most important thing. There will be things that I want to make sure I leave you with, but if we spend a whole bunch of time talking about something that's really important, that's the most important. So that's great. Okay.
I would just add one thing.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would like you to interject this evening
Yes.
where you've had experiences with boards, both positively or negatively, and how that's worked well for your partnership, or in spaces like that where we're building trust, or whatever that kind of looks like.
Okay.
You have your own different perspective than we're gonna have. So
as we go.
as we go, yeah.
Perfect. Great. And thank you for that, because your superintendent in terms of together is the first. Okay. Wonderful. All right. Let's get started. Thank you. So would just love to know, to go around the table and forward, but would love to know your name, your time on the board or with the district, where you go to high school, why are you on the board, and what is superpower?
George, thank you.
That's a pretty open spot.
All
George.
right. Let's see. My name is George Labeland. I've been on the board for a few months. I went to high school here. I'm on the board because nobody else would. There was an empty spot, and I waited till literally the last hour and went, all right, I'll do it. And superpower, I don't know what sort of superpower I might bring to the board besides just fresh eyes.
That's great.
I
That is
don't
a
know if that's a superpower, but
and where did you go to school?
Oh, yeah.
we said that.
I said that. I went down the list. Oh, yeah.
I was being nice.
Yeah. I went to school here, Soren.
Good to know.
Yeah.
My name is Jamie Olson. This is my 3rd year on the board. I went to school in Philomath, K through 12. I'm on the board because I was a frustrated parent who felt that my voice and choice wasn't being respected. And boy, did I choose the wrong side of the table to be on to voice that, for one. But I also have really appreciated the perspective that I've learned through the training and see the value that I can bring from a different side of that. What is my superpower? Organization and love and passion for children and making sure children that are underserved are served. I would say that's my superpower.
Racine Follett, this is my 5th year on the board. Feels much longer. I went to Crescent Valley High School in Corvallis. I originally joined the board because I saw a district with a lack of standard structure and no ability to follow the same, like no standards and following policy for each situation and things like that. So accountability, I think, maybe in this space. My superpower, loud. I'm not afraid to have a voice.
My name is Soren Rounds. I've been on the board for just over 2 years. I went to school class with George, K through 12 here. I joined the board because at the time there was some disarray in the district and the board seemed like they needed help and I wanted to help come in and fix things. And my superpower is related to that. I just happen to have time in my life right now to do community service type things and be on boards, and they needed someone who had time to do that kind of stuff, and I kind of do it.
Board, not on the board, but yes, time in the district. This time around, a few months. I taught here for 8 years before the beginning of my career. I went pre-K-12 here. So power, I think I'm really kind and compassionate, but I have extremely high standards. It's full of numbers, for staff. And I would say I have an ability to bring people together.
Laura Nickel, board secretary. Did not grow up here. Grew up in Southern Oregon in Klamath Falls. Ended up in this position because the previous secretary retired, and the superintendent at that time approached me, given my 20+ years of experience working in school offices, to bring that to the board. My superpower, great. I just try to be organized.
Well, as you know, I'm Kristen Miles. I have been with OSBA for 9 years. Been in my position as director for 2 years. I went to high school in Salem, Oregon. Okay. I am also on my local board. I am a board member in Tiger Tualatin. Starting my 3rd year. I am on that board. I have a daughter in the district. I was involved a lot in the district on the budget committee, on the community budget committee, and volunteered for the levy, local option levy before that. But I also felt like, I'd been going around the state for 7 years previous, telling board members, superintendents, how to do their jobs together. And I would say the superpower I bring to my board is probably knowing governance. And saying, this isn't our role, this isn't our role, this isn't our role. So I do a lot of that, for better or for worse. So thank you all for those introductions. That's great. Really quickly, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I love to just hear about what is current staff for you. And I'd really like to start out with current success
It's, thank goodness, she is good at what she does because she came into a storm.
Here's your challenges. All of them.
Thank you.
Couple other things.
There's really great energy in the school and around the school right now, which is awesome to start the year.
And a change.
Yeah, there's a lot less pessimism than there has been recently.
And I've heard from some of the community members that it's starting to spread into the community because our staff are continuing to go to the businesses around here, and their demeanor when they come in is much more positive.
What about challenges? Just a couple of things. What are you working on? What are you facing? Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
I think getting our old-fashioned community to understand that our current Alsea school district community isn't that of the old days. We have open enrollment, we have online students to consider, and we have other communities to consider. And I think that sometimes is frustrating for some of our community members. They think that it's just little old Alsea, and we're bigger and better than before. So with that comes change.
And kind of along the lines with that is like there's, you know, for generations in LC, like the school district, like in LC, everybody either knows or is related to a school board member, pretty much. And there's always been like, you think there's something wrong with school, you go to your school board member and get it fixed. And I think that's a project that we have been working on as a group for ever since I joined the board,
Yeah.
trying to
Yep.
straighten that out. And it's going to continue to be a project that we work on for probably many years.
Yeah.
I want to sandwich one though. I think a success and a challenge is you're also those people, like where that person sitting behind the board with a student in the school or where with the school or something. So we find ourselves sometimes pulled into the operations where we have
Yeah.
so I would say a success is we've doing a really good job pulling ourselves out of that world, like out of that like lane change. But also we have to keep it forefront, otherwise we get sucked right back into that. And so it's like that challenge and success at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say a success too is how unified we work together as a team. We seem to all respect each other very much, and while it has had its challenges in certain topics and situations, for the most part, we're very united, and I think that's powerful.
It is. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that operations and, you know, community connection piece, like, that's so common in a small community, especially when the school is the hub of the wheel for the community and, you know, and the center of gravity. And so if you're doing a good job keeping that balance of like, you know, we're trying to stay out of operations, we're trying to disentangle ourselves as much as we can, knowing that in a small community, you are closer to the action than you know, boards over big districts, right? You just are. But that's great. Thank you for sharing those things. Okay, so agenda tonight, we're gonna go through those roles and responsibilities. We're gonna talk about high-performing boards, the risks of low-performing boards. I'm gonna talk to you about the balanced governance standards, what good governance looks like. We're gonna do some fun scenarios to practice through, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about tools for collaboration that we recommend and see what you've got, what you might be looking at refining, etc. And then ask what I will tell you, if you have been through this one in the past couple of years, hopefully you'll hear something new. But like all of our stuff is grounded in research. Like we don't come to you and just say like, here's what OSBA says you should do, right? It is all in the research. We know that boards move the dial, and the research says how. So none of this is, you know, what Kristen says. But just a couple of questions before that, because your answers to this will almost certainly be what the research bears out. Why do you think the board matters? Why do you think board culture matters? And why do you think your relationship with your supervisor matters? We don't have to
without some sort of leadership, there is no direction. So there has to be something. This happens to be voted in by the community. Why does culture matter? I never believed that a board could impact the classroom the next day until I watched it impact the classroom the next day. The positive side seems to be a little bit less quick, just so I'm clear. The negative side of it. And the relationship with your superintendent, without it, it will crumble and fall without that trust and that understanding. Even that disagreement, like that kind, respectful disagreement, without that respect, nothing.
Why does the board matter? Because that's how things run. That the law says you have a school board that takes care of things, and that's why the relationship with the superintendent matters as well, because that's the path that the power flows. Like the board through the superintendent takes care of the school. So you have to have a relationship there, or nothing's going to happen. And then the culture is like any group of people working together. You have to have a culture of being able to work together and trust each other, or nothing's going to get done. It's just how groups working together works.
They nailed it.
And, Risky, you said something that, that I say a lot, that I've never heard a board member say either, that the decisions that you make tonight impact students the next day.
Literally.
Did you?
I've been in a few training sessions with it.
Okay, all right, well,
Like
so
that's not.
development goes
that's-
around saying that, yeah.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that, but
It's true though.
I would never.
true.
You don't need to look for it until you hear it. Then you can look for it. And
It
see
absolutely does.
But the passion and the positivity that's in the hallways
Yeah.
wouldn't be there. I'm not giving us the credit for that because there's a lot that goes with the internal leadership. But if we were in the, we can't, we're not doing that. We're working with a superintendent.
That's right.
If that relationship was different, even in the hallways with teachers and staff, that would feel different.
Yeah.
The classroom is even more impactful when it hits the kids. But the positivist, like if we look at the positivity side of it, we can see that happening. We should hopefully move away from that negativity side anyways.
Well, and as you said, like, sometimes the positivity piece doesn't hit the next day, but it will certainly hit the next school year. Like, think about when you pass budget, right? Like, what are you investing in for the next school year, right? Like, that may take a little bit to purchase curriculum or invest in program or something like that, but like, that's your next. That's great. Everything that you just said, like, all of those pieces you said, that all of that is supported by me. All of that is true. And you, probably have seen this before, but that research shows that the single belief that all students can and will learn when shared by the entire board, that alone measurably impacts student outcomes. And we think about what's the opposite of that, right? If we don't all sit at the table and believe that all students can learn, that changes the way we think about our kids, changes the way we want to allocate resources, changes the way we think about what our teachers need for professional development, or what we need, or what our superintendent needs. Right? It changes the way we think about programs we offer. And so when we all believe that all students can learn, that changes things too for the positive. And then we make those decisions. So what does that leadership team look like, right? When we're putting this all together, you are the board, you have the ultimate authority, you set that direction. This does not mean you do this in a vacuum, obviously. You provide that oversight, right? Then there's your superintendent. There's obviously some overlap there. Your superintendent provides leadership, is your main source of expertise, puts your vision into action. And then there's your administrative professional, right? She's providing coordination, doing that compliance, that continuity piece, probably knows more about that compliance than anybody else, right? Teacher legal. The overall district leadership then is that overlap between board and superintendent. The governing body operations piece, that is the board and admin professional, and then that coordination between the admin professional and the superintendent, those are those executive functions. And the way you all work together effective leadership team, right? Like everybody in this room, that's the leadership team. And how effective that is, that that is the effectiveness of the leadership of the district. So, and of course we know that school boards impact students, right? You all come onto this team as individual board members. You all have your own values, your beliefs, your why am I here? I asked you that in the beginning, right? It is okay to come onto the board with interests, right? Agendas are different than interests, right? But like you all come on with interests and, you know, wanting the best for all students. And then that is when you collectively do board work, right? You've got your roles and responsibilities, doing decision making, you've got your focus, and that then of course creates board culture. What does it look like when you work together? What is the tone of your work? You're collaborating, hopefully, right? You're building that trust and you're having accountability for yourselves and holding the district and the superintendent accountable as well. Of course, board culture filters out into the rest of the district. Then there's organizational culture. And you are already talking about that, like feeling it in the classroom. Teachers, like, you know, the rest of the community feeling that as well. Leadership alignment, district-wide expectation, you know, all how that goes. And of course, like that immediately translates to classroom instruction. If you're feeling the tone in the district and in classroom or in like within staff change, like that's impacting students. Like there it is, like one to one, and you're going to see that a change in outcome. So there is this causal chain between you all and students. Probably seen this before, right? This needs to be updated. There have been a couple of studies since there was a little bit of a gap between 2020 and 2024 when there wasn't as much going on. But as you know, all of those pink lines are notable studies in governance. There was a couple of those in actually the 70s and 80s are from a notable researcher named Deborah Land, who actually vehemently came out against school boards. Like she used to write about the thing that she hated the most. And she would write about like, we need to get rid of all the school boards. They're terrible. Like they know nothing about education. They just sit on top of the system and do terrible things. So at least one of those pink lines is. So all of this is the notable studies on effective boardsmanship, really starting with the Lighthouse inquiries that ask the question, are we sure boards don't do anything? And the answer, of course, came back, yes, they do. So here, you know, we're looking at what is a high-performing board. And what I did here is take some of the big studies, and I know they're a little bit dated, but they are still referenced in research today because they're still important and they're still relevant, and align them with what do these things have in common, right? So high-performing boards, they set vision and goals. And they set vision and goals. They set clear expectations and they commit to that vision. They do that in coordination with their communities and their staff, and have that aspirational look at what do we want our students to do, not achieve, because that sounds like, you know, some metric on a test, but what do we want for our students? And then they create those conditions. It's really hard to say, here's what we want, go get it, and we're providing you nothing, you know, to do it. Now, does that mean that you can perfectly align all of your resources to exactly, like, here's all the money you need? No, we can't do that. We know that. But creating that climate also is not just about money, right? It's about support, and it's about time, and it's about, you know, providing, this says sense of urgency, right? Like saying, this is important. This is what we're all aiming for. The sense of urgency does not mean a sense of panic, right? That's different. But just creating that focus, which means you at board meetings are also holding that focus on your strategic priorities. Data and monitoring progress, having that monitoring plan. Vince did send me the strategic plan work that you have all been doing, so I've looked at that, which is great. That looks fantastic. Being data engagement, I will never tell you what community engagement looks like in your community, right? Because it is highly specific to what your community expects of you and what you can give to your community. But, it's about building public will, having a collaborative relationship with your community. When we get asked to come in and help facilitate what that looks like we really build that with the district because while there are some things that are a little more standard, community engagement is super hyper specific what the needs are. Policy and accountability, that's governance, right? Policy, not policy with a big P like you would adopt, policy with a little p meaning governance, being accountability driven and having that focus on governance and not management.
I won't say I have any questions on that, but you mentioned focus board meetings on strategic priorities. Well, we have our board governance agreement in front of us. I think that's maybe a really good thing to have either in that or a statement in our agenda that has that strategic priorities. So make sure that they're kind of front and center in our mind every single time and the communities.
I know of boards, this isn't possible all the time, but I know of boards that will structure their agendas around their strategic priorities, so what fits under this one, what fits under that one, and then there's an other section, what do you just so that they can, or they will, if they've got agenda items, or they'll keep the structure, but if they've got agenda items that specifically tie to one of the strategic priorities, they will label it as such so that they and the community can see we are constantly tying our stuff to our.
That's, yeah.
Okay, so practices, we gotta look at the other side, right? Practices of low performing boards. These are kind of the big categories. So spending less time talking about student needs, right? So having meetings that are less orderly and less time being spent on student achievement. When we say student achievement, that doesn't necessarily mean just looking at OSAS results, but talking about things that make a difference for students that impact student outcomes. That doesn't necessarily I'm never just saying test results. Also saying things that are both direct and supportive of student outcomes. So a lot of times non-academic indicators as well, talking about attendance or talking about extracurriculars and things, mental health. I mean, things that are supportive of outcomes for students, but less time spent on those things and more time spent on adult things or something like that. We know that makes a difference. Anecdotes and agendas, meaning personal agendas, not the meeting agendas. So members seeking to advance their own agendas, and like I said, an interest is different than an agenda. So, an interest being, somebody said, I can't remember, Jamie, was it you that said this, that I come with an interest in seeing gaps narrowed or seeing, was it students, did you say
Parent
students?
voice and choice.
Yeah.
Underserved kids.
Underserved
Urban,
kids, right?
yeah.
That is a broad interest, right? That serves many students, right? Coming with a specific interest in maybe seeing disciplinary action for one particular individual, right? That's an agenda, right? And I will say that there is research that shows that professional development for boards actually mitigates the impact of personal agendas, mostly because board members learn what their roles are and they sort of let go of those personal agendas. Being only vaguely aware of school improvement initiatives. So when board members don't know what's going on, right, at school, obviously that's probably going to have an impact. And then anecdotes and personal experiences driving decisions. So we all have personal experiences. I mean, if we are related to or connected to in any way, school or people in school, things will have happened, that we are connected to in some way. And are we going to come in with personal experiences? Of course. However, we make decisions as board members for all students. And so we can't let, an experience drive our decisions. Poor relationships, of course, less effective working relationships with each other and with the superintendent. Obviously, lack engagement, some individuals taking up too much airtime. Now, that does not account for differences between like, some people are just quieter, right? And that's okay. That doesn't mean everybody has to be forced to speak. But if there are some people that just don't let other people speak, that's a different thing. And then when staff don't know the board, that doesn't mean like what you do on a weekend, although in a small community, they probably know what you do on a weekend. But it means like, do staff know what the board does, right? I don't know if you've heard me say this, and I don't know if my team is going around saying this too. This was mine first. Nobody knows what a board member does unless you run a board. That's what I say to everybody.
True. Yeah.
Right? And so like, it's not out of malice or anything that like folks don't know, but you know, we tend to think of board members like individual legislators, right? Like, get on the board with your specific interests and you kind of get to push that agenda and you get to represent individuals and you know, like get to, you know, rail on things and blah, blah, blah. That's not it, is it? Like, that's not it at all. Like, you get on the board, you may have an interest, and then you work as a team. And like, you have no individual authority unless the board votes to give it to you. And that may sometimes happen, like in negotiation for a contract or something like that. But that's it. That's it. And most people don't know that, and that because it's counterintuitive, right? And so staff not knowing that is actually an indicator of a poor performing board. And so like, and I would say, you know, the community needs to know that as well. Because then we run into things like, you know, being stopped at the grocery store. You know? And people not understanding why you can't solve problems. Micromanagement, less focus on policy items, policy with a little p, less focus on governance items, and less reliance on your superintendent for advice and input. So you know that your superintendent is your chief academic officer. So when boards rely less on their superintendent as that person, student outcomes don't suffer. External blaming, referring to external pressures as the main reason for lack of success. So, I mean, you know, we've heard, and all of these things, blaming communication, describing teachers and students and families. So, I mean, if only those kids, right? If only we didn't have those kids will never make it across the line. We've heard things like, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, and that, of course, that impacts. There has to be that belief that all students can learn. And that while we cannot control everything about every student's life, like it's our job to do everything to wrap around every student and support them. Any questions or thoughts about it? Okay, what do effective meetings look like? You may have highly effective meetings, but just to run through what we say, what we recommend for effective meetings start on time. Right? Now, I don't know what ending on time means like for you, but it looks different. Focused agenda on strategic priorities for the most part. We just talked about that. Obviously, there are things that have to happen that are outside of strategic priorities, right? Like everybody has like a boiler contract they need to deal with at some point. Like that's okay, but the more we can talk about what the strategic priorities are, the better. Come prepared, right? Everybody reads their board packet before they get here. I don't know if you remember back in the days that everybody had a paper board packet. I had a board member say that the worst sound she ever heard, so back in the days were like, you know, you would get a paper board packet maybe delivered to your house or mailed to you or something. Her board would get them in sealed envelopes. She said the worst sound that she ever heard was coming to the board meeting and hearing with.
We don't
Yeah.
get them until the board. Website.
Oh,
It's in
okay.
Their paper packet.
Okay.
So really love them board books. And that they come out to us really early.
Yeah. Having a process for board member questions and discussion, right? Like have a process before you meet, right? I always advocate, set the rules before you need them, even if you never need them. So, you know, do you have a process? Does everybody get to speak once before anybody gets to I mean, because you never know, boards change over, right? Like, you never know when you're gonna run into something where you do have somebody who like just talks and nobody else gets to. Is there, even informally, is there a process for like, I mean, on my board, there's an informal process and we don't even really, but someday, right? Right? Respectful engagement with colleagues, even within just have to remember, there are, we do some conflict management in our department, and there's a model that we sometimes use, and a quick 3 questions that, that we say you can, from the specific model, that you can ask yourself. It's completely different than this, but, you know, when we're facing a situation that, is potentially in conflict.
It's
Um,
me, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem, no problem. It's just like, that is my text tone for a specific person, and I'm like, did I turn that off?
Only my children can break through to the
No,
silent
you're
voice, and
fine.
it turns
Totally-
out
I
they're doing a good
totally
job of
get
it
it.
tonight.
You're good. You're good. Is what do I want for myself? What do I want for this person? And what do I want for the relationship? Right. So when we're in like a conflict situation, maybe, and it's hard to like get a hold of that, you know, it's nice to take a breath about that, but like, that could go up on a bird walk all about conflict. And then having a process for public comment. I know you have a policy for public comment. Make sure that you know what that is, that you've got your process, that you've got a little speech that you read before public comment that maybe is on your sign-up sheet. I'll ask you about that. Just to give that overview of governance and management, right? You adopt policy, those big rules, and your superintendent gets to implement policy and those associated administrative regulations, or AR. You adopt and oversee the budget, probably looking at that. How often do you do like budget update? You know, how often do you get updates on budget stuff or
Monthly,
like
pretty much.
information? Yeah. Do you talk about it at the meeting, or you just get reports?
Depends on what's happening. Sometimes if there needs to be reallocations or gaps, or
Okay.
if I can talk about like what's stopped.
Okay.
We always get a summary
Yeah.
that kind of just goes over major changes and
Yeah.
everything, and have the reports to dive in deep if we so choose.
And your
Sorry, we get the
superintendent.
checks separate. from
Yes,
that too. So we get
Checks
our
and deposits separate.
Okay.
To review outside of the board meeting.
You're reviewing all the way down to checks and deposits?
So per audit finding,
The auditors recommended it.
they,
Oh,
but
did
it's,
they?
but it's sent to the board
Okay.
to review.
Okay.
Any questions? But like, it's not a discussion or a vote of adoption of them.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
We don't vote to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But there are questions that will come to potentially me and Dawn and I.
Yes.
Dawn, the business manager.
Okay.
And this is one area, I can't remember if it was Eddyville, but they did that for a while, and then through the training, it was like, you already approved the budget. That's
Right.
really
Yeah,
not
we-
the board's place to question.
Still voting on bills
Eddyville?
to pay. I remember
Yeah,
in a meeting that
and,
I watched.
and so
they were
OSBA
still
came in and
voting.
said, that's not
Was
really
that
your
my
role.
training
I
credit?
think it was, I think it was.
You
And-
were doing the same thing.
Yeah, and so it was like,
Because I train the charter school.
yes, I honestly think it was, and I think you explained the process that you, as a board and a budget committee, approved this budget and spending within these funds. But it's really kind of tending to go into micromanagement if you're looking at every check and where it goes and what was bought at Amazon and what,
Yeah.
because it's time. It's a
Also,
lot of,
Can we ask that question? Because I would love to get checks out of our purview
Yeah.
and deposit.
Yeah.
But the audit finding, because it's still public information, it can still be requested.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
not, but also the audit, so then the audit finding found us in violation for whenever they're audited for not having that oversight. But we also put in a different process for oversight to show like what the checks and balances and systems are and that. And so I think there was a lot of desire to see all of it, but it, in my opinion, feels like a micromanagement when we're getting into the light bills of the
Right.
school system. But
Right. Right. So if your, I have like 3 things. So if your auditor had not recommended that, I would definitely say Did your auditor recommend that for a specified period of time?
It
Like
came
some
up twice in a row, actually.
What year was that? Was that just last year?
The last
And
few
the year,
years.
yeah.
And they recommended that the board go all the way into.
Not necessarily. We didn't also have a checks and balances system, like this position does X and then this is where they check this off, or this position does Y and they check this off. So we didn't have a report function essentially that we adopted each month that said these roles in the school fulfill this function
Okay.
and this is how that process works. So that when somebody said to me on the street, hey, Ristine, how does this payroll process work? I could say, well, I don't really know how that payroll process works, but I do know the system for approval in that.
Okay.
So we put a system for approval, like checklist in place. Well, we didn't do that. Our business manager did that. But then at the same time, we brought back the check.
So is it because there wasn't some defined or they didn't think that there were enough steps that they were like, somebody needs to be involved?
They were very unclear about why.
I didn't think there was enough oversight almost. Like it was odd. It was an odd. I'd have to point you to Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, as a bookkeeper, and somebody who is responsible for, we adopt and oversee the budget. I appreciate seeing the income and the expenses. Just so I can stand before my constituents and say, I see it. I have no doubt, I have trust that this is within our budget and nothing shady is happening. So I appreciate it, just because things can get caught. People are human and make mistakes. So I feel it's my responsibility to have an eye, a glance at it. But I personally have not made any question.
And one other aspect of it that actually bothers me a little bit, specifically due to a recent question I had about it, is the auditor said, not only look at them, but be more involved, ask more questions about this stuff. The board needs to
We have a
ask
responsibility.
questions about it. And so
make
then I did, and now I feel like I'm micromanaging. It's really not my job.
I mean, I don't, I feel like, I don't want to say like, don't listen to your auditors,
Right.
because I feel like that would be saying like, don't listen to your attorneys, right? Which I'm never going to sit here and do. But I also, from a governance perspective, right, that is not typical of the board, right? I mean, you hire people to do exactly, Jamie, what you're talking about, right? Like, and if there is a problem, then that comes up to the board, right? And then, then there is if there's a problem or something that seems like a problem, because like at the board level, if you're seeing something that is like, this doesn't seem right, or this isn't like, reconciling with what we're being told or whatever, then it's like, okay, then there are times when the board plugs in a little bit more, right?
From the contrary side, the question that has been asked in the past is, how would the board know if something weird is going on if they don't look at all that stuff?
So the audit.
And I think that's
That's
what the context that it was brought to. If we're not seeing some of this information, how are we able to do our job and catch some of those things?
Is it one step deeper though? Because I don't know what's bought it in Amazon.
No,
But
right.
really what we don't see is the checks and the balances of what's in the checking account versus what our expense, the liabilities and things like that. That's really where you catch things. Those are off balance. Because what we see every month from the print, you know what I mean? I think you
just
can get as deep as you want and micromanaging as you want. I would love maybe clarification from the audit of what they mean in that, because what is putting visible systems in place appropriate?
Right.
And that's what they intended? I don't know.
I can say in a recent review of some of those processes under previous management, it was very blatant to me as a bookkeeper that something was done a little different. Not that it was an inappropriate thing, that it was a fraudulent expense. How it was processed in my bookkeeping brain wasn't right. And come to find out, I was correct. So if I didn't see it,
Right.
couldn't raise the flag and say, this doesn't work. Not saying that the expense isn't valid, but I think there was something a little off here.
And that might be what the auditor's intention was, like, let's
Yeah.
get systems in place.
Yeah.
But I think
Okay.
even
Right.
with the system that we have, that did go through those people and still wasn't necessarily caught.
Gotcha.
So I appreciate it. Not that I ever doubt an expense, but I appreciate seeing the ins and outs and where things are going and being able to say, I stand behind every single thing that we're presented.
Is there another way though to keep the board out of those details? Like, is there any additional eyes or any additional look within the system that, right, because you're not gonna have, like, so sometimes it's just that the staff is so small, right? There's only like one person that is accounting for whatever, who's got the expertise to do X, Y, Z, right? And there's nobody else to look at it or something. I'm just describing a very small system. Is there another way to build the system so that like it does not take board members looking at something? Because Jamie, even if you've got expertise, someday you're not gonna be on the board.
Right.
Right? So even if we set aside what's the appropriateness of the board doing it, let's say there's nobody on the board with any expertise, right? So the plan should be to prepare for this. The system should be able to take care of itself without the board being involved, even setting aside the conversation of should the board be involved at that advantage.
Well, and I don't
right?
feel like we're involved,
Well, if
We're-
you're looking at checks and
but
all of that,
but I'm not necessarily involved with the decision making or the writing of the checks or the
Yeah.
approving of the funds. I'm just aware. I'm aware of the expenses. I'm aware of where the money's going.
Devil's advocate, you are aware, but that doesn't mean that I can't
Right.
question every single one of those checks.
Yeah,
And then get into the
understood.
weeds of the operation. So kind of in that same sense.
Respecting the boundaries in
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
And I would say, this is where I feel like the team internally, the business manager, the superintendent,
Yeah,
need to have a very clear system that we show you,
yeah,
because there are things that I'm finding that are not done here that I've done at other districts that I can't believe aren't done here. Not that anyone's doing anything bad, but poor checks and balances for me being ultimately in charge, I want to see.
We
And
had
I'm
to
going,
sign off on it
because
at the end
I'm,
of the day.
at the end of the day, I'm signing off on it. And so I feel like those systems I do want to get in place and present to the board that this is our internal controls for spending.
The process that we have
Mhm.
2 years ago was not existent.
Right, exactly. So just
So
continuing
the
to like
improvement
tighten
that
it up.
we've Had in the
Mhm.
last 2 years.
Right,
Is night and day from
Right.
before, even when they were still receiving checks.
Yeah.
All the time.
yes.
The checks and balances are improved and just.
Yeah.
We had no knowledge of internal controls.
Right,
So we had to
right.
request for like, what, for those, I'm on a
Mhm.
tangent, sorry, but yes, there's been progress.
And yeah,
But
and we need to make some more progress so that maybe you don't feel as obligated to get into the, yeah,
Telling us to do it.
exactly. Exactly, so you have some trust that you don't have to go through every check
right.
number and,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, is that like, the system is self-sustaining enough so that the board can be in its governance level and that the board in its governance level will still be aware
Mhm.
enough if something is not right, so that the board can ultimately hold the system accountable, right? Because that is the goal. The board needs to hold the system accountable and does need to have enough information without having to be part of the management of the system, right? In order to hold it accountable, right? So maybe the auditor was saying, and I don't know, I read the audit, but like there's a piece missing in here and the board has to fill the missing piece or something. But I don't know, that's interesting. I read so many audits because like I evaluate charter schools all the time and I've never read an audit that's like a board
No, it was pretty vague.
Yeah.
And, but again, every time I go through, it's interesting. I kind of like looking at them, except for the fact that sometimes it's very frustrating. We see how much one book costs.
Yeah.
But every time I have a question, I'm like, ask the question. I'm like, that's not something I have anything to do with.
I just skim and I look at what my
But then, like, even if I
brain-
have a question about it, it's not my role to
Yeah.
question that specific thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like this is something.
It's definitely on my radar.
Yeah.
The things you learn as you get into the system. You're like,
Yeah.
oh,
absolutely.
okay.
Like,
Well,
right.
Might want to shift a little.
How does this work?
Yeah.
Good, but this is good. I'm glad that, that got raised. Anything else on this? Okay. Program adoption. Sometimes you are asked to adopt, approve program. And of course, the implementation of any of those things will be done by the district. By law, you have to adopt curriculum. Often that will come to you through a recommendation, usually vetted through a number of stages and processes. I have personally been on curriculum adoption committees. Those are long and a lot of hard work and usually done by very knowledgeable experts. Community engagement, that is the responsibility of everybody. And it looks different in the school than it does at the board level often, but then there's a lot of overlap. And then you are provided data and information, and then your job is to do that informed. What we want is, we talk a lot about micromanagement, but we also don't want you to be disengaged or rubber stamping, right? Like that's the opposite. That is also bad for students, right? We don't want a board that's just like, sure, right? We want you to be knowledgeable. You have to have a lot of information in order to make really important decisions, right? You make really important decisions. And so in the middle of that is called informed oversight. And so, what we talk about mostly is micromanaging, because we don't run into disengaged boards very often, but that is the other end of that spectrum that is also not. Yeah.
So I think this is where my question comes into play, the informed oversight. Our most recent issue with curriculum. I'm supposed to see the curriculum, per our policy, we adopt the curriculum. I don't know. I know there's state standard. I know I can go and look at curriculum online. I don't know what is required by law for a district to have at what grade levels and so on and so forth. Stacy put together a complete, up-to-date, current curriculum for us in a spreadsheet now, so I can see that there's no gaps. But that's something that maybe we should add into our board training, is like what we should be looking for in that, to know that our district is operating as it should, that informed oversight. Like, we were missing key curriculum.
Yeah, what are some specific components of informed oversight?
Yeah, and I think this is where you say rubber stamping. I have a little piece of me over the past 2 years feel like I put 100% of my trust into the person sitting in that spot. So we would make our decisions, and I feel now, looking back, that a lot of that was rubber stamping without truly knowing the whole picture. I was only seeing one side. How do I get to that middle without overstepping?
How do I know what questions to ask? when I don't
Exactly.
know The questions to ask.
Right. Right.
And especially, I think what gets sensitive in that nature is a little bit of that when. Like, on my agenda, should I ask, well, hold on, should I have called Stacy 3 days ago when I got the agenda? You know what I mean? Like, what's putting egg on our face a little bit in public versus, not that we shouldn't be open, but I'm just saying, like, when should I get that clarification of what becomes that micromanagement? Because I don't disagree with you on, I would never have known what to ask in that space.
Particularly as a new board member,
I
you
trust
have
that.
no idea what questions you should be asking when they they don't micromanage, like, okay, well, I'll trust the expert.
Right, and that's where I say, I don't feel yet, I feel this is the closest I've been to that middle ground in the past 3 years, going on 3 years. So how do we get there? And I think having direct communication to say, it's not I don't trust you, it's I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right.
And I've had to learn the hard way, I guess, a little bit. So how do we get there? And is there pieces maybe from your guys' perspective that we can have included in trainings, or maybe it should be something that's in the board manual, like it says you govern this. Well, this is what you're looking for. These are the questions you should ask. This is what you should see in your district. I don't know.
So, and a lot of it, yes, and like, this is such an important question and it's so big, right? And a lot of it, my job is always to give unsatisfactory answers. A lot of it is gonna be gray area and it's gonna be feeling your way through, right? And it's gonna be, this is the part of it that is about, like, this is the reason that you build that really trusting foundational relationship with your superintendent, because a lot of this is negotiated, right? Some of it is gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna ask a really detailed question that is so far out of my lane and I'm not gonna know it. And I'm gonna, have a good enough relationship with Stacy that she's gonna be able to say like, that's a little, right? And the other way around, right?
I won't speak for anybody else at the table but myself, but I feel half responsible for the storm that she faced, thinking that we hired her as our interim, thinking we had done all this work and we put all these things into place and we were finally, woohoo! And then I'm like, why? Why did you have to go through so much? And how should we have done better?
Well, I don't know what that part was. I mean, like, I think it would be interesting to do, well, let me ask this. How interesting or useful would it be on which parts to do a postmortem on that? You know what I mean? Like what would be the utility? And I'm not asking that as a challenge. Like, I'm asking that as a, like, what's the best use of your time and brain power? Because I mean, if there is utility in spending time on that, then yes, good exercise.
I mean, I think personally, I hope we keep her forever.
Yeah.
And the work's done. But like you said, these positions change.
They do.
And if I want George to come in and be able to slide right in to us in that middle informed oversight and have the tools that he needs to be able to do that and not feel like he's just a rubber stamper like I've felt, I think it's important.
I'm almost thinking in this conversation, I've learned a lot over the years of what needs to be in place. When I started, I didn't have a curriculum master for a K-12. I didn't have that stuff.
You built that.
I built that because I found that there were gaps everywhere I went. And I'm a systems person, so I just created that. Something we could do is a shared drive for the board no, it's not, you don't have to know this. It is, but I think it's good for you to know it and just share all of those things. I mean, I've shared them with you anyway. I bring them to the
Yeah.
board and I share all of it. But what's our discipline matrix look like? How do we handle these things? Where is our curriculum? I shared all the master schedules and where all the RTI lines up, and all of that is just good information for you to have. So
And
we could
what I
just
think would be-
upload.
I don't want to ask you a question.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know I can't.
Yes.
But there also becomes an accountability on my part to know the things that I shouldn't have to ask you on a Thursday night to send out all of these emails. Because, hey, board, on a regular basis, I'm updating anything in this space that you need to be aware of. And so really it becomes our responsibility when we're checking those our board books, like, oh, well, maybe I need to check what's up in that, what's happened in that shared drive, what's updated in that around, and I think that speaks to the, not just informed oversight, but like the student progress, like, oh, look, the disciplinary matrix changed. I wonder what happened there. Like, could you tell us why they
Yeah.
changed that? Like, did you see something that you needed to modify in the hallways? And then become an overarch that becomes
It's a
like,
conversation.
an overseeing of like this, that, and then when we do evaluations, we get to see where that path and that adjustment took us also.
Mhm.
Kind of my thought process on that.
But again, I wouldn't have even known that I should see that system, but ultimately that's my responsibility. And I guess I take
I mean-
responsibilities really seriously.
But I would also, I'm not trying to like get us out of that to say we should be accountable for that, but I also would say that when your most senior member is 5 years old, like it feels really, like there's, I
There's a
had
lot.
no idea
Yeah.
either. And
Yeah.
so also, you know, if Stacy wins like a million, she decides to leave us because she wins all the money in the world because she would never go to another district.
No, it's too much work.
How do you set up a successor to
Mhm.
make sure that like, hey, this is what your board expects. This is what we want it to be
Mhm.
maintained and updated, and these are the systems that have been in place. To
Mhm.
your point of like procedures, these are the systems that have been in place. And if they're updated and if we're like, whoa, that took us like 10 years backwards, that's not on here. Like that's another conversation for success of the district.
So we are at the tail end of building like, and I haven't given it a once over. One of my teammates is on that. It's like 100-page manual per board. Like it's, I mean, it's not like a novel, 100 pages, but it's for onboarding and all of the things to do. And it's meant to be customized to like put together yourselves. I know it's got at least a 1-year outline, but it's got a whole bunch of other stuff in it that is probably likely to address a lot of these system things in it. She's almost done with it. It is something that we're gonna sell because it's huge and
I was gonna say enter Copilot.
probably
summary.
not one of the 3 things, but you know that is a resource. The other thing that you know maybe would be good. I talk especially to charter schools a lot about the succession planning thing because you know in a small system it's just so much more important because you know the system is not just like constantly self-sustaining. Like things are people dependent and personality dependent, or they can become that so much faster. And so when you've got turnover, it's and so I mean I hear this desire and need for and the start of you know like so many better systems that have sprung up over time, and you know just this desire for the definition of more of those, even so that board members can know, hey, what are we responsible for? Like, you know, how much of the curriculum alignment do we see? How much of that needs to be transparent? And or you know, or what does the budget need to look like if we can get out of like looking at checks and you know, like what would that actually look like in a health system? Or you know, I'm sure there's innumerable things we can talk about, and maybe like spending a work session looking at what are the systems, right? And what would they look like? Even a short work session before a board meeting, talking about them and what you have and what you know what you need, what great ideas Stacy can walk in with that she's brought in from other experience.
I think specifically in line with what we're supposed to govern
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
be helpful. And I think that's a huge tool. I think you'll sell a lot of them.
Might deter. I mean, do you really want to put that out there?
Give them the quick summary version, yeah.
On our website right now that is free, that is it's like a 1-year plan. Like here are the things to maybe to like cover in your first year. Like you could log anybody can log
Lot to
on and
look
get
at.
it. It's like the things, you know, to like make sure you cover in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. Like you can just like start learning and knowing. It's not what you're getting to, Jamie, but
Yeah.
like it's the you know kinds of things to like start learning.
Nothing feels worse than being looked at by the community or after or legal and they have to say. So I think
Yeah,
the goal is really like, again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And I think our intentions are always good. But there becomes like stepping away from the kids' for a second, of the legality component of this that we are accountable for. And I think we've seen too much in our district where we fall on the wrong side of that. So we want to, I guess, build trust with the community and the people also, that we're on the, like, we're working and educating ourselves to get on the right side of it. That it's not a micromanagement. It's not like that. We're getting on the right side of it to be educated and be able to stand behind that.
I think that staying in legal compliance is actually a non-student.
Okay.
Yeah,
Different
yes.
than everybody. It is.
Yes.
Because when you're not, that pulls you away from being
Right.
a student,
Fair.
and it endangers the whole system. So I think absolutely talking about like staying in compliance is about kids.
And
Yeah.
I think from the very beginning, like I said, most people come in with an agenda. They think that they can come in and just fix the world on the school board. I think the community thinks when they're voting for those people that very same thing.
Mhm.
And I have asked Vince multiple times, and maybe it's going to be a natural segue with this piece that you have, that I would love to be able to have something that we can present to our community, a training that we can hold as a work session for our community that explains how to appropriately work with your board, make them understand what governance is and what our role is. So they're not fighting against us. They know where our lanes are and they help us fight in those lanes appropriately. I've hoped for that and wished for that the past 2 years as well,
Like
because
you wanted us to do that, I just did one of them.
No.
Or you want to do one of those
Do
yourself?
like a work session.
I was okay with, I mean, I want to learn also because
Yeah.
I think our community would benefit from it.
Yeah.
But I specifically asked it a couple of times for something. And
What would you like? Tell me what
I-
you would like.
I don't know how to put it.
Guide,
Then
guidance on
I
how
think
to,
that-
do it.
how to do a community education work session.
Like how would we lead it, or how would?
Uh,
or would
I
you
mean,
want a
I'm
partner
happy
come
to-
in and lead it?
I mean, I would prefer a partner.
I was gonna say, it might
Or
be really
some-
powerful to have a partner in
Yes.
it, like we are all in this.
A caring, disinterested third party.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
So
Because
Yeah.
I do
I
think,
just did one of these last week.
Okay.
I do these all the time, usually for charter schools, right? Because in the charter world, like, there's a lot.
Mhm.
But so what I typically do, and if you wanted me to do this, could co-create this with you, obviously, to what you did. But what I did last week, for example, was it got to the point where there was a lot of confusion about like, what does the board do? Why can't I just go in? They're all parents here. Why can't I just go in as a community member and say like, please fix this problem? We're all friends. Our kids are friends. It's that thing, right? And so as a caring, disinterested third party who has no stake in it, right? The board, and this is my guidance, the board sits there, right? The board is there to listen and does not answer questions. Questions come from me.
Mhm.
So I present, and my presentation is like, so we booked this, it's 90 minutes. And my presentation is half an hour to 45 minutes. And I'm like, here's who I am, here's where I'm from, like, this is, whatever. And I go through the, like, kind of a mini this, but for the, like, this is governance and management, this is what a board does. I actually did this down in, Medford, actually, last summer for the community. It was the library, and it was just for the community. There was a lot of confusion down there about what is the board to do, and it was before the election. And got a slide deck, and it was, what is the board responsible for? What are they not responsible for? And what can they do, and what can they not do? And like even just like what is policy, and what are the things that the board is legally responsible to? And it's there are a lot more things that tie a board hands than you think, right? It is super counterintuitive, right? We have a lot of empathy for what the community knows and does not know, right? And so I do that for 45 minutes, and then I just take questions. And the board is there to listen.
That would.
I think that would be
Well,
fantastic.
Now, if you could like.
I mean, you're
if
2
you- if you could
years
get
too
people-
late.
get
Yes.
everyone in town, like,
I think that's part.
You get a lot of complaints, but nobody shows up to the board
I
meeting.
do wonder though, our,
It's available on
Yeah,
Zoom.
if you
could
Maybe-
force people to come
maybe
to that,
two
like, make
people
them listen.
per meeting show up to watch the
Right.
presenting.
I do wonder if we promote it though. I mean, like people are coming to these community engagement things. It's starting to,
Yeah.
grow
offer
a-
babysitting and food.
yeah,
Can we record it and post it?
We'd have to, all of us would
Yeah.
be there, right? We'd have
Right.
to notice it as a meeting or a work session, and
But
so.
we could put it right on our main board page as a training that people can reference. We would be able to use it as a tool. Like, I don't have time to sit here and explain this all to you right this minute, but this video on the website would really show you how you can work with us.
And
I
when
think
we
it would
do
be
engagement, you know,
really-
Go through engagement like this is not a place for plans. We don't
Mhm.
like talk about anybody by name, you know, like
Yep.
and all of that.
mhm,
And I don't make anybody write down their questions in advance, you know, like it's super like it's meant to be like welcoming and engaging and like this is all because the board wants to like, you know, connect with the community, but they're
Yeah.
here to listen to them.
I'm kind of glad,
I
that,
think
like,
that's-
I like the idea of us not
Yeah.
one, I think that's great.
We're just there.
But I also think, Jamie, you and I have talked about this, or we've had conversations about this in the past, but it's like we don't, like, it doesn't feel like we're reaching the community. We can't get them to come into us. And to your point, also, this is an open space for the third party person. This is your time to shine. This is your time to come in as a community member and just have your board hear you, nothing else. And there is accountability in that engagement as well from the community. And I think with your like with some of the things that you've been hosting and the opening the doors and all of the construction finishing up, all of these
Mhm.
pieces,
it might
it
open.
might be a spot for that. But also, I think it's also a way of saying, did you know we had this community event and nobody showed up? Do we need to host one of those again, do you think? This is a great place for you, like that, you know, and those are, they're hard questions to ask back, but I think they're appropriate questions
Mhm.
also in that accountability cycle.
Well, and we really are working hard on this connectivity and inclusion and how do we work together, the whole entire community? There's a great opportunity to come and learn how you get to be a part of it.
How do you work with
Where
the
do you
board?
fit into it?
Well,
Mhm.
even staff wise.
Yo, totally.
I mean, if you had one that was geared towards staff members, not just community, I mean, it's probably basically the
Well, and the
same.
staff could come to that. I mean,
Same
really.
thing,
Yeah.
Mhm,
You know, I mean,
mhm.
Right. They all live out
I
of
could
town.
do a, if you didn't want to have two,
Yeah,
I could do a like, you know, here's how, you know, families, I mean, it's not that different, right?
Right.
Like,
No.
I mean, the function of the board is the same.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, we could do a little, I'm trying to think like, I don't know, but there could be something about staff that was directed
Mhm.
to them in a way, you know, like so that the community could also hear, like, here's how staff interacts
Yeah.
with the board,
Mhm.
and then, you know, here's how
And
community
the
interacts.
staff can ask questions too, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they could totally throw questions
Everybody
out
can
there,
ask questions.
address
They just
that.
ask me.
Yeah, but I mean, and they could be staff level or community level or maybe a split mix
Mhm.
of both.
Like we would have
honestly.
to have two.
I
so-
think it should both very
Most of the staff
specifically
lives
be
a long way out of town, and you would have to
discussed.
do it at a time when the staff is already here at work.
I kind of like to
Oh,
put that like
okay.
third block
Communities-
hour though too. Like whatever we're doing to hit their contract time period.
Oh, I
to
see.
make
Okay,
it-
so they would.
Yeah.
Then
Gotcha.
community, it's gonna have to be after they get home from work.
Yeah, fair.
Sure.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I like the idea of hitting both groups though,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm thinking, yeah, the Medford one probably is the model for that because that was to, I mean, there were families there, but that was to community members that really in that community were just like, we don't know what a board does, it's almost election time. And so it was just like, it was really just like, what does the board do? Now, that could be, I mean, and yeah, anyway, I do a lot of it.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
think we should,
incredible.
yes,
Happy to work.
yes.
That's incredible.
Would we be able to not partner it, but like, you talked about in our last meeting with the portrait of a graduate who wanted to do a community event
Yeah.
also. And so like, does this also kind of fit into that also community engagement, like each one of these, bringing those community engagement pieces, where you're not having to lead all of them, but we're putting like, or hopefully partnering together to put together these separate events
Yeah,
to open these doors to have that voice and all of that
Mhm.
space. So
yeah.
thinking like, how do we take a little bit of that alleviation, that stress off of you of hosting all of these in different areas, but really
Right.
kind of coming at this in two different ways?
Mhm. I think it would need to be a separate
Yes,
night,
yes,
but
yes.
yes, I think we need her to come do this.
But even like a
For
month,
sure.
even if they were like a month. apart
Yeah,
type of thing.
exactly. Mhm.
And again, I struggle because again, we would probably want to host it in the gym or at the library. But that's only getting LC. What about our online students?
We could zoom
Do you
in
wanna do
too.
one- Yeah, we could zoom and then answer,
Uh-huh.
like, yeah.
I mean, I
absolutely.
think we need to think
Yeah.
broader.
Yep.
We could absolutely
I
have a-
think our LC little community definitely needs it, but it's also a different dynamic with the parents
Yep.
that are in Philomath or Corvallis or, gosh, Cottage Grove at one point in our
Right.
district had students coming that far. So,
We'd have to host it online anyway.
Yep.
Required to do that, and there'd be no reason why
I hope we
they
could,
couldn't, like, the way that we couldn't unmute all the participants. I think Nathan just has it muted so that they don't, like, we don't get interruptions. Or
Right.
maybe,
Yeah.
but we could, I don't know.
Or put the questions in the chat. I could read
Right.
the
I was
answer.
gonna say, we could have
Yeah.
someone helping
Yep.
facilitate that
Yeah.
chat and,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
invite our Learn at Home families
Yep.
and all the things.
Yep. I
You
think it'd be
just
awesome.
made my whole day.
You
I've
didn't know
been
she was so
hoping
easy
for
to
this
set
for
in the
2
very
years.
first.
No, I think that I'm really excited.
That would be great, yeah. I mean, if that sounds good for community engagement, then I would be more than happy to fund that.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
Good, we'll do that. Work on that. Awesome, see, these are the kinds of things that come out of these trainings that are super important. I know we've got probably like, I don't wanna keep you all, but we've probably got like 45 minutes left. I've got a bunch of stuff, but what's really important for you to hit? I've got, the 12 standards, the 12 research-based standards to go through. I can go through them a little quickly. We've got some, scenarios to work through. I've got tools for collaboration I wanna make sure I go through. Before I do those, is there anything else that you wanna make sure you talk about that was on your mind?
I make sure he gets
Yes.
what he needs for a
Yes.
solid start.
Yeah. I'm not gonna ask
I-
you what
He
you wanna
doesn't,
talk
I,
He has
about.
no idea. No idea. I'm saying.
I've taken the position of a sponge in these
Yeah, I
first
understand.
several months just to kind of
Yep, totally understand.
gather.
Have we provided you that first year?
Hmm?
That downloaded copy of like that first year's board member?
I was gonna say, Laura, maybe we
You
can
know,
get that to him.
I don't think we have.
Call.
I
It's
don't-
You get a
relatively
binder?
new.
I-
It's
yeah,
relative.
I got a
Maybe-
binder
I gotta,
too.
yeah, but maybe we can do that, provide that, cause that'll probably help. And then I can't remember, do you share your slides with Space or do you? Cause then I think that's an option too, like
Go back through and
Yeah.
reread.
probably for all of us.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah,
And
cause I
if you
probably,
can go to conference, go to conference.
Oh, yeah.
I learned so much at conferences.
it'll be good.
Yeah, the Rural Caucus just put out a scholarship for board members to attend. I just applied for it. Sorry.
Okay, well, let's go through these, even if it's quick, because we have also talked about a number of them, so I don't need to. So these are the balanced governance standards, and, researcher named Dr. Tom Alsbury, who is internationally known for his research into board governance and the relationship between the board, and the superintendent, wrote literally the book on balanced governance, and this is the model that we use. And it's got 12 standards in it, and research shows that when a board is actively working toward good performance on these 12 standards, not doing it perfectly, but working toward this, then you are actively impacting or positively impacting student outcomes. So vision directed planning, that is that first one. That is the strategic plan, right? And having that vision. Or doing that or have done that. It's that document that looks beautiful. Community engagement we just talked about. I won't go into that. Effective leadership, that is your leadership that's focused on student outcomes. That is holding yourself to your own agreements, respecting those roles and responsibilities, and then that accountability piece. We talked about some forms of accountability tonight. Having goals that are measurable, that you monitor them, that then you are using data, asking those questions, working through like what questions do we ask? And that is something, if we continue to work together this year, I would be really interested in also working with you like for like banks of questions, or like if you're looking at like certain systems, like what do we ask about, things? If you move through like, certain systems, like I'm just sitting here thinking like, how can I help? Right? I'm always thinking, how can I help? So anyway, if we continue to work together, like, I would love to help with that. And anyway, looking at progress. Wait, where did it go? I was gonna, I put this there on purpose. So I pulled from your strategic priorities just to reflect some of those things I just talked about. You know, your strategic priorities are personalized and equitable learning, career and community pathways, safe, supportive, and engaging climate, and community engagement, shared identity. So many of those things are just reflected in that, in what I just read to you. And that vision-directed planning then, you know, points at all of these things. So, so as I read your strategic priorities, I was like, oh, some of these standards even are reflected in the things that you said you want to focus on before. Great. The next four are then using data. That goes right along with that accountability piece. So how do you use data to measure what you're monitoring and knowing what you're looking at? So your superintendent brings you information, and when I say data, I don't just mean student performance data, right? That data is financial data, survey data, any kind of information. Okay. Cultural responsiveness, recognizing that diversity comes to you in many, many formats, and looking at disaggregated data, ensuring that we're reducing and eliminating barriers to access for all of our students. Creating a culture and climate that models respect, that recognizes success, that makes students and staff and families feel welcome, and then being a learning organization, right? Doing reflection and professional development like you are tonight, and wanting that for teachers and your superintendent, and trying to guide things. And then finally, the last four, systems thinking. We talked about systems tonight a whole bunch. Looking at the system as more than the sum of its parts, right? Taking, leveraging strengths over here across the system and not moving problems over here to there. Supporting new ideas and thinking about the impact before expanding or before contracting, right? Thinking about seemingly intractable problems differently or trying to. And then the 11th one, board member conduct, ethics, and relationship with the superintendent. That's roles and responsibilities, right? Making sure you've got your clear roles, and that you follow your protocols. And then budgeting and financial accountability. Great, all of these things. And you could dive into any
Or
of
you
them.
do it with so much energy.
I know.
You could dive into any of these much more deeply, but we won't do that tonight. The other thing is, can the board impact the superintendent's leadership? This is the really important thing because you can. So there is a newer study that that looked at actually the 12 standards. So boards took the self-assessment that goes along with the 12 standards. We've got a board self-assessment that is the 12 standards, and superintendents took the multi-factor leadership questionnaire, which is a questionnaire that assesses transformational leadership, which is the kind of leadership that most superintendents identify with, and it's got 4 components. And what the study showed was that the better the boards did in community engagement, cultural responsiveness, and using data, so standards 2, 5, and 6, the better the superintendents identified with the component of transformational leadership, inspirational motivation. So the better the boards did in these standards, the more motivational a leader the superintendent felt that they were. So the board, in using these research-based standards, can impact positively their superintendent's leadership style, which is also another case for having that relationship. Then they can go ahead and be inspirational to their staff. So what does that look like then, aligning that with practices that your superintendent might take on? Well, what does that look like in community engagement? Maybe advisory committees or administrators and teachers involving families in other kinds of decisions. And of course, strategic decision making aligned with your strategic plan. Using data, they're gonna use multiple sources of high quality data, looking at growth metrics and not just that snapshot picture at the end of the year, looking at gaps and opportunities, slicing data in multiple ways. inclusiveness, celebrating diversity in your student body, students seeing themselves in the curriculum, and potentially using an equity lens or at least a group of questions, like who was at the table for this? What is the intentional and unintentional impacts? What assumptions are we using when making decisions as we go into decisions? And small decisions that are actually good. We also look at how does the board support. There's lots of ways to support your superintendent. What does your evaluation process look like?
OSBA.
We use the
OSBA.
OSBA COSA.
Oh, okay. I'm like, it
evaluation
looks like.
Yours. It looks like yours. It's yours.
Outlined so the executive session where we're meeting together, we've worked with Vince or one of the educators from OSBA to kind of help us compile that.
Okay.
So then we can take that and build a summary statement
Great.
for the superintendent to review and get that.
Perfect. Okay. Do you do the quarterly check-ins piece? Okay. Okay. Great. Wonderful. Okay. That is one way that can be really supportive. Have you been through that before, the OSBA process? Okay. Good. Okay. Staying informed about the strategic priorities and asking non-operational questions. We've already talked about how do we do this? So that can be very supportive. Public-facing support for district initiatives, right? If you as a board are supportive of something that the district is doing, that the school is doing, like being supportive of that openly, right? And that's at board meetings, that's with constituents, right? Showing support where you are supportive. That also supports your superintendent. No surprises, right? We talk about this a lot. If you have been on the board for more than 5 minutes, I've heard this before. Preparing your superintendent and her team for big questions that you're going to ask at a board. So, and this is one of those where, it may be the like, how do I know when to ask a question for saying this, like, and what is it, and, we talk about like, so you get your board packet or that something is coming up on the agenda, right? Preparing Stacy in advance for, hey, I'm going to ask this question at the board meeting. And so she can either say, okay, I can or will be able to have that information for you at the board meeting, or bring the right person to the board meeting and ask a question. But then asking, even if she's got the answer for you ahead of time, asking it at the board meeting so that it's still transparent to the public that you had the question, right? And so that they know, because, she could maybe easily provide you the answer, just, back channel in an email or something like that. That would be fine. But like then showing the public that you had the question, and then they can.
Well, one of the things I think of, and this is super obtuse, or it's like glaringly obvious, but like the fire drill, like
Yeah.
today, like, hey, guess what? This fire, or we had this system happen. The fire department got called. We evacuated the building really well, but it was a false alarm. We're good to go. But all of that was operational, like really.
Yeah, but
And
just to
but
keep,
I love that it got shared. I get shared with the board in that space. So one, you don't get well, why didn't the evacuation process happen the way it's supposed to? But also, but then we're not overstepping into that,
Mhm.
and so it's at your kind of comfort and like space of I'm gonna share this operational piece with the board so they can keep it. Like I really love those pieces. And again, that's a really obvious one. But I think as things get hard, sometimes we kind of waffle on where are we stepping on your toes, or what do we share here to make it, and it's because we can't share about personnel or situations, and
right.
never would we want to ask those things, but
right.
just like that, I feel like that's that no surprises thing also.
Mhm.
Like, would never want to ask an operational question like that in a board meeting without having a heads up, but also like I don't have to ask it because, hey, look, we got this update today.
But then on the other side, you mentioned sometimes asking first and then asking it in a board meeting also. And I've been thinking about that specifically with financial pieces, because a lot of times we get financial pieces ahead of time. Well, specifically it's those checks and deposits where they say ask questions and we'll answer it, and then it doesn't go to a board meeting, because that part I don't think needs to, but
Yeah.
when we get a financial report, and sometimes if the business manager isn't available to be at the board meeting, you're like, we'll answer your questions by email, then the community never knows that this question came up and was answered.
And I think there's sort of a distinction between like, what is not a super big deal that can be answered, like, I mean, and I get asked this question a lot, like, well, do I have to ask all my clarifying questions or something at the board meeting? Or, what is a question that doesn't need to be repeated at the board meeting? Like, every time I call, text, or email the superintendent, do I have to then bring that to the board meeting? No. Right? I mean, there are gonna be some things that you're just gonna ask, and that's gonna be fine, right? And if it is, and if the right person's not available, I mean, then it's, then maybe you say, like, could we get follow-up on this or something? If it's a big substantive question, right? And then there's sort of the discretion of like, if it's a big substantive question, I'm gonna ask Stacy this, or like, is this something that we would want to clarify at the board meeting, or that we would want more information, or I would guess that the rest of the board would want more information on this or something. And then we would talk about bringing that back, or we would hope for the answer at the board meeting or something.
And if we knew that ahead of time and Dawn's not there, like, then I would know to get those answers to share in the meeting.
Yeah.
If it was a big question.
Can I give a scenario question?
Yeah.
Oh, but like patron comment comes up and the patron comes up, but really it's not, well, the board doesn't answer questions.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger issue that really truly is operational, so we look to the superintendent if they can follow up on that. In the past, there wasn't a lot of board follow-up on that necessarily. Like sometimes there was, but then sometimes maybe what seemed like a smaller issue grew into a bigger issue because it lacked some of that, like, but it was operational, right? So it's not necessary, but what does that look like from your perspective and your perspective?
Yeah, so for me, you guys have already been exposed. I share all kinds of things that I don't need to share, but I just do. That's how I work. So for me, if it was a big issue enough for a parent to come to a board meeting,
Yeah, anybody.
I'm gonna send you guys an update of what was resolved within reason. I mean, without stating student names and those kinds of things, but I would share that with you,
And
just
I
so you
think
know.
educating the community to know we moved this to the operational side. We
Mhm.
don't have any stamp here.
Right, right.
We could say you're not getting follow-up from us because this is that lane, not our lane.
Because we don't usually say that in general.
Yeah,
So that's
right.
a good piece of that too.
Yeah.
And once we have a resource to point people towards and have offered a training, we can utilize that language a little more.
Yeah. Do you say, like, for public comment, do you say at the beginning of public comment, like, if there's follow-up that's needed, like, it will generally come from the superintendent?
I was gonna ask, do you guys actually read something? Cause we haven't had a,
We haven't had a patron comment where we actually go through the kind of some language of the policy that we're here to hear them. We're not here to hear complaints. We're not here to hear staff criticisms or things like that. But we don't have a piece there that says like follow up will come from the superintendent. What we've done in the past, just kind of as a process, is to look to the superintendent and ask around that.
Yeah, it's been an individual situational basis, like usually the chair would be like, you follow up with this patron about this issue, and then, yeah, the superintendent will follow up with you about that, thank you,
okay.
and that's the end of it.
And that may be fine also, right? Like, as long as folks understand, because not everything is gonna require follow-up too. I mean, you can either
Right.
make it as a blanket statement, like, if follow-up is required, that will come from the superintendent, or you can do it on a one-off. Somebody may just be coming to say like, hey, this was great, or something, or, and no follow-up will be required, and you can do it on a one-off or whatever, as long as it's all correct.
Let's see with that training, how we can let people know that they don't just have to come when they have something to complain about. We want to celebrate with them. And maybe something I had recently seen, there were some people on another district's school board meeting that were absolutely livid that they didn't have an opportunity to present their patron comment. Well, they didn't turn in their card. They wrote on the card and they kept the card in their hand. And so maybe explaining a couple of those pretty basic policies and procedures.
Especially
Like-
because when things get really hard, if we're trying to meetings
Yes.
are hard, it feels really ugly.
It does. And I think it probably felt really ugly to that board. But it's like, you need to make sure that if it's coming in via email, that it's in by whatever the policy says, by 3 p.m. to this email address. Or if you're gonna speak, you've gotta give the card to the right person. And just those simple little things that I think erode trust and break
Yeah.
relationships.
And if it's front loaded, like this is what we do
Yes.
regardless of the situation.
Yes. Like we operate under policy. This is
Yeah.
what our policy says and how we handle these situations. We want to hear from you. We want to hear the good. We want to hear the bad. But
Well,
this is how you have to
maybe-
do it.
Like, because policy, a lot of it comes from the law, right? Like, you don't sit and write it at the board table. Like, a lot
Right.
of it is, you have to, it comes from somewhere.
Well, even when we wanted a policy that we didn't have, that didn't come from the law, but we wanted to adopt another district, what did that take, 6 months?
Yeah.
Like to go
It took a
through all.
long time.
like,
And you had to go to
there's
the
a lot
lawyers
to
more
it.
than once.
Yeah.
It's like, how are we gonna follow the law?
Right, exactly. And so, you know, what I have done in the past is explain the 4 kinds of policy, right? Like required, highly recommended, recommended. Like, just as a quick, like, because not a lot of people know what that is, right? And it's just like, this is some transparency into what boards do, and these are the rules they have to follow.
And here's where you can find.
And here's where you can
Yeah,
find it,
yeah.
right?
I
It's
mean,
super
our
easy to find.
website is way better than it has been for
Yeah.
a lot of years, but there were years that you couldn't trust any of it was accurate and up to date and current. You couldn't rely on it as a tool. So, and, and with that being said, I also stand on the fact that we're adults, we have responsibilities. Like, if you are curious and you want to know, you really should take some initiative to go and find it. It should not be planted in your lap and read to you. I mean, we have some responsibility. However, if you don't know where to look, it's overwhelming. So if we can include those pieces in this training,
Yeah.
I think it would be so good.
We assume massive amounts of computer literacy because of where we're at today. It's not a safe assumption.
Especially in rural communities. Access is the
Not
barrier.
everybody- I mean, I know a few people who would throw their cell phones out the window if they were just given an opportunity. Just don't want it. So, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's some of us that live in the middle of nowhere on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can include, as we build that, I will make sure that we get all the components that you want. I always say support your superintendent's time and energy, and just focusing on a few performance goals every year, right? Like, Stacy will do 5 million things this year anyway.
She's an overachiever.
Right? And so, but just, you know, choosing to evaluate on a few is really important. And that also protects your time and energy as well, right? Because like nobody can spread their evaluation energy super thin, or else you're not really, it's not me. Publicly celebrating successes, right? That's good for all of you. It's good for kids. It's good for staff. It's good for everybody. And it's highly supportive. COE support provides stability, and so the better you work together, that's supportive of you. Talk all night about how supportive that is of your student. And then research shows that when your superintendent provides professional development to the board, that is not good for the relationship. It's normal for your superintendent to sort of onboard you and be like, here's the district, here's this. But imagine training your boss, right?
Right.
Right? Not a natural part of that relationship. So the superintendent, so that actually messes with the relationship. If the superintendent were sitting here doing roles and responsibilities, it makes it weird. So superintendent should not provide professional development. Any questions about that?
Sorry, I feel we let you down.
No.
That's the space where That's where it feels like.
On the PD part?
No, us not knowing some of the things and you having to
Oh.
teach us.
I think of that maybe a little bit differently. I think of this, she's not telling me what my role is.
Right,
But
that-
sometimes,
yeah.
but sometimes I'm asking her what her boundary is. So there's like clear
Oh, that's good
discussion.
stuff. That's
yes,
a good
yeah.
thing.
But I
Yeah.
mean, like, some of that's preference, some of it's through experience. This is my boundary in this area. It could be considered PD. I think that's just like that healthy relationship
Oh,
building.
Yeah.
But
I'm just thinking
yeah.
from,
it's-
I think we should have had our specific. Live and learn,
We're all
all
doing
good.
the best
It's
we
all
can.
good.
live and learn.
Yeah.
We're all doing the best we can. Good.
Oh,
Right,
oh,
right.
Let's see how many, all right, let's see how many scenarios we can get for fun. Okay. Staff member who's also a parent approaches you at the grocery store and asks if you can please help them with a complaint about their child's teacher. Sure, this never happens. Their student's teacher has been assessing or grading them punitively, and the staff member believes it is retaliation for a tough parent-teacher conference earlier. They mention they have tried connecting with the teacher and have been unsuccessful, and now they fear retaliation in their own job. What do you as a board member do in this situation?
refer them to the KL policy and encourage them to document the steps they've taken and any steps they take further.
Any other additions, thoughts?
This is something
Red Fire
that
pickup.
exactly happens in Elsie fairly often, and I will echo Jamie, that's exactly what I told them. It's tough because a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
To validate their concern, like, I'm sorry you're having this issue. You have to state the boundary. If you tell me too much, I won't be able to vote if it comes to our table. You need to follow this policy and document.
And one more, her contract for superintendent would have to let them know whenever received a notification
Oh,
or
yeah.
conversation that could result in a complaint process. And so we do owe a conversation to our superintendent from the person that it came from. Like, it's one thing to call like your board leadership and say, what do I do? But the conversation happened with that person called us superintendent. Hey, whatever this looks like, I need to bring it to your attention so that it's on your radar in that space. And I know that some people feel like that violates anonymity, but part of our role is to make sure that's
And if they come to you in person, they're not anonymous.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's true.
And there are no surprises.
Yeah, that's great. And Jamie, I like that you said sort of validate, we always say validate the feeling
Mhm.
and not necessarily the
Right.
complaint. I know what you mean when you said that. Because it's okay to be empathetic. Right? It's totally fine to be like, I hear you. I hear your frustration. Some people just, they want to vent or whatever. And then, yes, refer them to the process. The board is the last stop, not the first. If you get involved too early, you may have to recuse yourself. And then, of course, it's that education. It's like, I can't act independently. Like the policy prohibits me from doing that, and it's all that. We always recommend, however you want to say it in your own voice, having this little elevator speech, because I'm sure this has happened to you and will, and this will be one thing that I would talk about in that. And then, of course, yes, splitting. What are the layers here? If you try and work with a teacher and that doesn't work, who's next?
Principal,
Principal,
principal super.
but I'm the same person, so it could be, like, if it's me,
Well,
they
that's
have
what I'm
to-
wondering.
then it
is
would be
who's
Joe.
next?
I'm next. Joe, the assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then, of course, the scary word in that is retaliation. I would say even if you didn't have it in your contract that there was that you owed a conversation with Stacy, anytime you hear the word retaliation, you're letting your superintendent know.
Yeah.
There are trigger words.
Yeah. Okay. What about this one? A board member posts a question question on Facebook asking for input on the math teacher's behavior. She states that her daughter is upset as a board member because of the way the teacher runs the classroom and wants to know if others are having the same concerns. She makes herself available for questions by text, email, and social media. She goes to the superintendent and shows the concerns, wanting something immediately. She also emails other board members for their input. She tells the superintendent that if they do not deal with it, she will bring it up to the next board.
She inspired.
Can't fire a board member.
Ethics violation, big time.
Not under Oregon ethics laws, which are financial in nature.
Okay.
Right. Now, when we say ethics, I know we mean something else, but Oregon ethics laws have to do with it. But there's like 5 things in here. So what are they?
We should never be posting.
Shouldn't be posting.
As an
Board
individual.
Social media is a very slippery slope.
And an individual running things is not,
We're never not
No.
a board member.
As much as we would love to
Very
keyboard pound back.
very hard to take off the board member hat once you become a board member. Yeah.
And she knows better. She knows the policy. She's got questions. She knows where to go.
Yep. Right.
and she is not the board.
Al- Although it says, let's see. Other type of same concerns are still available. She also emails other board members. Okay, so although it does that she emails all the other board members together, it's still a really poor practice to email your board members individually to try to skirt public law or public meeting law.
Right. There could
That's
be potential public meeting law violation going on here. Who knows? Right. Plus, what is the issue? Right? Like soliciting complaints against a staff member? Or I mean, like what?
Well, it's not a
I
board
mean,
issue. I mean,
right.
honestly.
I mean, we all at this table could have a scenario where we're frustrated as the board member with our child's teacher, you know, and we know based on our training and our roles, how to handle that. Because we can go to the right channels and say, I'm having this conversation as a parent, not a board member. Can you please tell me this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the scenario would be fine if she were not a board member. She'd go,
doesn't.
Say, ask other parents, like, what do you think? And then she takes it to the superintendent. That's okay.
I think that's even a slippery slope as a board member.
Like
And if
I said, if she were not a,
Oh,
not
just
the
a parent,
lot of that
yeah.
would be okay. Then she cannot bring it up at the next board meeting with.
Can't
her.
bring it up at the next board meeting.
It's not on the
Bring it
agenda.
up.
She can't tell individually, she can't tell the superintendent what to do.
Cannot
No.
direct the superintendent. Yeah. Threatening the superintendent, essentially.
And if our relationship impacts staff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we do not oversee them, how threatening that
Yeah.
feels to all of the staff
Mhm.
to have a situation like that occur.
Right.
And really, actually, the relationship, like, while we oversee a superintendent, that superintendent's role is to protect their staff and to be on their team. Like, he is their, what an awkward, horrible space to be in with your boss to defend your boss group. This is just one person, but like still to try to put that barrier, like,
Yeah.
what an ugly situation. in
Yeah.
Jeff,
general.
this is an ugly one.
Yeah.
All the way around.
And if she got it on the agenda and brought to bring it up at the next board meeting, there's several other people involved there that have
Yeah.
a problem.
Right. I mean, there could be a lot of potential liability here, right? If this gets brought to a board
Almost-
meeting, you're complaining about somebody without their knowledge. I mean, like
Very much a mob mentality.
that.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the response?
From who?
Well, I would assume if Stacy read this, she would be calling me to say, get your people in order. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, so
But I think what's the guidance in that, you know,
Yeah.
when we do step over that operational or that, like, really that line of appropriateness, like, what is the, it doesn't need to be your board leadership. What's the,
Well, what's the superintendent's
well,
response?
no, what's our, like,
Collectively.
the collective response from each other? Because there's no reason why, if it's me doing that somebody else shouldn't be able to call me to
That's
the
right.
table on it.
That's right. That's right. So, okay, so a board member, let's say it's not the board chair doing this. Let's say it's somebody else. And the reason that you know this is because one of you sees it, I'm pick on
Well,
Soren.
I'm the chief.
Let's say,
I'm saying
let's
it.
say it's Soren. Soren's posting on Facebook, right?
Do you Facebook
All
marketing?
about the problems with the math teacher.
But I'm also individually emailing you for
Yeah.
input.
Right. And the reason that you all know that this has happened is not because you've seen it on social media, but because now Soren has emailed you all for the input, right? Now, any of you could tell him that this is not appropriate, but I would say as the chair, it's probably incumbent upon you to have that individual conversation, right? And then of course, like, this does not get raised at a board meeting, right? Like that, it's certainly, if he makes an ask for it to go on the agenda, it's not going on the agenda, and if he says, well, I'm burning it up, like, no, you're not. Right?
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think, and that's where, like, there's a lot of duties that fall to the chair with respect to relationship management.
Well, and if I remember correctly, if that person still comes to said meeting and brings it up,
Yep.
we have a responsibility to dismiss ourselves, so we're not in any form of violation.
I think that,
What's the terminology I'm
well, it's
looking
a
for?
point of order, and then it's a request for a recess to the chair, so you stop the meeting.
Right,
And
but
so then, so I bring up this sensitive topic, and you say point of order to Soren, because he's the chair at the time, you know, and then you say, I'm requesting a recess, and then this meeting is immediately stopped, because this is not appropriate board member conduct, this is not, this violates, you know, staff relationships, or this oversteps our role as board members, you know, and it stops the conversation.
Hopefully. Because if there's people
Well, and I
on the
thought
board,
there
there's
was-
so
if there
little you
was-
can really do.
You can then, if I don't, well, let's say if Soren's the board chair and, or I'm the board, whatever, and we don't stop the meeting, you can absolutely say, I'm putting on record that I'm stepping away from the table and excusing myself from this meeting until this issue is no longer being discussed. Because
okay, very
you-
similar to
yeah.
your executive session, if you happen to
Yes.
know we're off executive session
Mhm.
topic.
Yeah, you may not have to get, like, if, you know, if somebody brings something up, you can call point of order, and if they stop, you don't have to raise it, right? Like, it can just go on from there. If it don't stop, then I would say, you know, then recess the meeting. You don't want to be, you know, in a position where where you're part of continuing a meeting that was over.
And if you recess and the environment continues to escalate, how do you then close? Or does it just stay recessed?
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
Good to know.
I won't be there that night. You're welcome.
Oh, shut up, Bristol.
Just to remember, and you probably all know this, but each of you has to take required public meeting law training
Check, check.
once per term. You either take it through the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, or you take it through an approved provider. I believe we are the only approved provider other than them. We are offering it in so many different ways. We have it, we have a webinar on our website, that you can watch at your leisure. It's titillating. We also have, because it's such exciting stuff. We also will be offering it at the conference or a convention. If you go to any of our regional, oh no, we're not offering it all, but we'll be offering it at some of our fall regionals. But for those kids that have asked for it, but it'll be at convention, and also it's on the website. So you're welcome. But just as so I'm not an attorney, I can't offer legal advice, but just watch your communication effectively, right? Like, ensure that, you know, when you gavel out of a meeting, you leave, right? And also that email, text, social media thing, that you're never doing a serial meeting. That's the hard one, right? Like, it's easy to know if you're all in a group talking. It's harder, it's impossible to control who sends your email on or who sends your text on. You will maybe never know, or if you do, it'll be late. And that is, you know, something that the Attorney General's manual is like, they don't really care about intent. You know, it's the impact. And we also know from new clarifications to public meeting law that we also can't use our superintendents as, you know, conveyors of information, as hubs of the wheel, as I don't know the word that they use. Oh, I just lost it. use her to like poll the board.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Gotcha. I have a question about social media. Okay, so the school has a website. All 5 of us comment on like a football game.
Oh, on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Facebook. We're like, yay, good job, great job. We're so excited. Amazing win. We say it doesn't matter about intent, but we're good there.
So you're not discussing board
Business.
Business, okay. So when there's a complaint going around on Facebook and it's critical or there's criticism of the board or the superintendent, and that starts to go into that, as soon as we start engaging in that, that's when that becomes that
I
public,
would,
that,
now I can't,
Don't engage.
well, no, I would usually agree with, I would always agree with that, actually, not usually. I just prefer that we're, that, like, when somebody asks me, I'm still advising in that right
Yeah,
space of like, best not to go down that road.
yeah. I would say, and you know, again, can't give legal advice on that, but I would say anytime that you as board members are gonna engage in anything substantive, you don't want 2 other board members being part of that conversation. So here's where it could get tricky. This is an example, right? So if you are, and I'll use a positive example for this. One of you posts on Facebook something about like, you know, win the song of the game last night. Wasn't it great that we won? Another one of you posts like, yeah, it's too bad we're gonna have to cut the football program next year because budget cuts. And then the third one of you posts like, yeah, but I have a great idea that actually had to save the football program, and you start discussing this, right? Like,
Okay.
there, you're doing board business.
Fair, okay, that's good.
Right? I saw all of your
For the
terrified
record,
eyes.
we're not cutting the football.
Yeah,
program.
I know, I saw like all of your terrified eyes. But
That's
it's
a
that, you know,
slippery
that's the kind of
slope.
thing. You can
Yeah.
all say like, yay, go team. You know. And you can all socialize, right? I mean, that's one of the exceptions to the rule. But you could all go to a party, you could all go to a game, you could all sit together. You just have to be really careful about what you talk about.
Hard not to be in that space.
I know.
Yeah, right.
And you have to mind perception. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth the public perception?
There are times I know we have to remember to wear our board hat, but there are times that I forget that because pre-board, there are relationships in multiple different areas.
Absolutely.
And so good gut check.
Yeah.
That's why these are really helpful. I like.
And the last thing is, it's important to remember that we are always creating public records in our board role. Like, even if we are staying completely within public meeting law and, you know, whatever, like, everything we put in writing as in our board role is a public record. Even if it can never be disclosed, right? Even if it has confidential information in it that is not disclosable or not discoverable, as if an attorney decides that at some point, if it's subject to public records request and is discoverable, it's a public record. So I always say, like, watch what you write down, right? Including tone. And so it's important to remember. Be aware that we are always creating public records in text, in email, whatever. I'll be mindful of your time. I'm gonna send you all of this stuff. I want to go over really quickly. Tools for collaboration. See, this would have been like if you didn't talk. All this. I'm so glad you talked. So our tools for collaboration, and we maybe will get through these really quickly because is our superintendent evaluation, which we recommend you do. We recommend our tool, of course. The board self-assessment. Have you ever done our board self-assessment? Okay, great. I don't need to talk you into that. Do you have a board operating? Look at you. And then the same thing for superintendent operating agreement. Have you looked at your board operating agreement recently and done it? Wow. Don't need to go through this. Goodness.
Saving time.
I know. All right, answer this. What are your greatest hopes and expectations for
Student achievement.
in a different way than like
That's okay.
student achievement.
Keep the school going and everybody gets out and it's fine.
Yeah.
Reasonable human beings. I'm better than it.
It's a great thing to hope for, yeah.
I want these children, no matter where they're at, to have, they know on June 7th or June 8th or whatever day, that day after graduation, it's like, I'm gonna take 3 months off to enjoy this break, and I know where I'm going next. I know I'm getting a job. I know I'm going to a trade school. I know I'm going to college. But like at some point in their high school, there was enough encouragement. They knew the next step they took. They were confident in that next step.
That their door was just open.
Greatest hopes. Well, I hope that I can accomplish understanding what's going on and kind of like Soren said, turning out good people. Just well-rounded people with direction.
All of that, and then also just the whole human piece, like happy and excited for life. They're going to treat people in their life with respect and um, act with integrity. Just be really good humans who are happy in this life and productive,
Yeah.
whatever that means.
Regardless of what direction they head.
Exactly.
When they walk out the doors.
Yeah. We have a lot of broken people in this world, so we can create whole humans. That'd be awesome.
What about this? One more. What can you do? Back to the outcome. What tool that you can use?
Our relationship, superintendent.
I'm not sure I could say anyone is higher than another. Maybe the budget, but it's the broadest. I don't know about highest leverage. But it hits a lot of spots.
Does?
I pick on maybe my weakest area, and I think like if I'm looking at this and going, what relationships in and out of hallways can I build? Not, I mean, yes, as my superintendent, but I have an area to grow in the relationships with student staff also, whether that's through volunteering, whether that's through just listening, whether it's just being an open person in general. Probably my weakest area, and so it's probably one of the biggest tools I can use to impact student outcomes. She's not letting you off the hook at all.
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah.
And each other.
Probably like love and belief in all the students and the staff, so they know that that they're not finished. They can always do more. They can always be better, and kind of building that belief inside themselves. I'm going to push them to be better, but that's how we're going to move the dial for everybody.
Probably our website, and we offer all kinds of stuff. Sign up for news clips if you don't get them already. That's, education stories all over the place. It's our team. Probably know our team. I know you know Vince. And then I won't push annual convention on you because they already know it exists. Next year, I don't know if you know this, we are no longer doing summer. Well, all I got in my head is summer school now.
Summer
Conference.
Summer 4. We're doing summer school sessions, which are little regional events, or will be closer to. We're doing it at Lincoln College next year. So instead of doing big summer board conference, we're going to move little regionals around this. So one day instead of multiple days, cheaper than the pre-conference itself. And so anyway, we'll talk about that later. But what do you want to do next? You want to do that community forum next?
Do you want to do community forum next, or do you want to work on the community event, or maybe just in general, like my first, second board work, sorry.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
my timeline
Makes this board
confused.
Yeah, I think. That's up to you guys. I don't want to tell you what you want to do, but
No, but for the
I
board.
think that
the
board
one-
community.
Perspective. You have a check-in coming up and,
Yep.
you have a decision to make going forward in that, but I think that is critical.
Right.
I think it will support the momentum
Yeah.
of our superintendent.
Great. Okay, any questions?
Thank you so much.
I know.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, and if you don't mind, I love feedback. While you're doing that, is there anything that you need from me? I will send along my slides. Anything that you need from me or anything that I didn't answer? I know there were some scenarios we didn't get to, but I think that hopefully we covered some stuff that you wanted to talk about. And out of it with a plan for it. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, any questions or anything else that you wanted to discuss that?
I feel like new topics come up every single time for this, so this,
One thing, just my own personal preference that I would love to see if we're doing a meal, I would love to see us serve. I would love to see
That's
us
a great idea.
serve our
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
I guess I probably could adjourn. While we stop. Sorry, I got so excited when I started with you guys. All right. Anything additional for the board regarding this? Okay, well then we will adjourn the meeting at 8:09 PM. Thank you.
I think that first year thing for George would be helpful. But I went to a little, it was for administrative professionals workshop at the summer